fam, what if I told you that a lot of factors that exist in society today are just a way of influencing us to live a certain type of way? Take, for example, religion, or culture, or social norms. I think someone put them in place to get us to live a certain type of way. And guys, I get it. I could be wrong, but again, the good news here is that I stand to be corrected. And that's the whole point of this podcast. If you're an open-minded person willing to challenge the status quo in pursuit for knowledge and deeper understanding of life, then welcome to Joanne on Air podcast. Hey fam, I hope you're doing fine. Welcome to yet another episode of Joanne on Air. It's such an honor that I don't take for granted that out of all the pieces of information that do exist on the internet, you spare some time to listen into this podcast. It is people like you that make this podcast worthwhile. In today's episode, we get to expand more on a topic that's been continuous in the conversations that I've had on my platform. If you were part of this community a year ago, I did an episode on people poverty and poverty trauma. In trying to unpack these conversations, we ended up understanding that most of these were rooted from the lack of social capital. So because you don't know a lot of people, your circle is really small. That's how we define people poverty. If you haven't taken the chance or had the opportunity to listen into this episode, I'm going to refer you to the Evolve the Intent podcast to go listen in and catch up on what it means when someone says people poverty or poverty trauma. It's all combined and it will make so much sense while you listen to today's episode, which is about social capital. So about a month ago, or two actually, when the term was starting, there were so many conversations about which schools parents should take their kids to. I started a conversation on TikTok that still led us where we are today. Which schools do you take your kids to? Do they matter? At the end of the day, does this sort of play a role in who we become as adults, or it doesn't? And the feedback there led me here as like, we really need to have this conversation. So without any further ado, I want to start today's conversation from an incident that happened, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So kids were going back to school. Senior ones were joining secondary school. So I happened to have a sister who was trying to enroll their little girl to senior one. And we're looking for all these schools and blah, 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 going on and about. And I was telling him, like, hey, you need to find schools that are like way above our, our own social capital, like people outside your circle. Like, so my sister stays in Footpoto. I'm like, bring the kid to the capital's city, Kampala, for them to meet, kids from like bigger circles. Yes. So the conversation really stayed on my mind for a while, and I ended up doing like a short video about it and shared it on TikTok. And there was so much hate from people, really, like, why don't you go to school you afford? Because in that video, I was literally complaining about, Banange schools are expensive, 3.2, 3.8. I was telling people about the whole being very careful why you plan to have a child, because if you come from like a family that's not so well off, you have to break the chain of like the cycle of poverty. And so I want to pick your mind from there. Is social capital a thing? Because in my opinion, the reason as to I was telling my sister that was the kind of schools that our kids go to have a huge influence on who they become as people later in the future. What do you think about that?
Social capital is a thing, Joanne, a huge thing. Let me tell you, I am privileged to have parents who are very intentional about where they take all of us. They knew our capabilities and knew that if they took us to certain schools, we would thrive there and it would help us in our adult lives. So they were very, very, very intentional. Even if it broke the bank, they went the extra mile to make sure we are in these schools. My dad actually said at a certain point, I want you to sit to the next ministers, to the next MPs, to the next policymakers, to the next MDs. If you can't be them, sit next to them. Let them know you. Let them have a history with you. it helps, create a softer landing in case things don't go well later in life. So I picked up on that because I have experienced what social capital for myself has done, and I am very intentional about doing the same with my own children. So yes, social capital is a huge thing, and it's not something that can be overlooked.
I just want to point you to some direction because with different questions that I've been having, one would say it's a thing of money. You cannot afford these schools, these communities. How about someone in like the grassroots of this country that can't afford the EAT schools that you're talking about?
For a girl, probably from a village like mine, with the average parents, if you're lucky and you're brilliant, well and good. So there are also schools within those classes, just below there, that are also for high caliber people, There are well-to-do UPE schools or USE schools. Also, for those that fear the very high-end schools, maybe Namagunga, Gayaza, there are schools that are close to those that will give almost a similar thing. Okay?
When you were earlier speaking, before we got in here, you mentioned something about your husband and how that has sort of like led him to where he's at now because of the social capital.
So my husband, his parents were very intentional about taking him to a very good school, one of the biggest schools in Uganda. And let me tell you, the alumni are the who is who. Okay? That is one. Two, he can't open a big office without finding someone that is from the same school. And to add on, for him, he went an extra mile. His parents pushed him into leadership. So most of the people that were there at that time in school remember his face. You understand? So it's a gift that keeps on giving. Like, oh, I remember you were this prefect. Oh, I remember you. How can I be of help? You understand? So a conversation that would have dragged to probably 2 hours, you trying to pitch something or trying to engage someone on something, is cut short because they remember your face or your name, or they instantly clicked about a memory you shared from the same school. So for him, one thing when we're choosing my children's schools, he told me we have to be equally as intentional. One, putting them in a school where they'll build social capital, but also elevate them to be, people of substance in society. Three, he told me we have to also be intentional about pushing them to have good friendships, okay? Because the friendship you build in your primary 5 up to senior 4, 5, and 6, those friendships stick. Because you've gone through the trenches with these people. And if you're a person that has friendships, these are friendships that you're going to have for a lifetime. Personally, my longest friendships are friendships I made in high school, because we shared memories, and these same friendships still keep giving even in my workforce. As when I entered the workforce, these same friendships keep referring me. No, if you're having a challenge with that, I can call so and so. I know them. You get? Because we went to together. They can't just seem to sit down and see you struggle through something. They'll hold your hand and make sure you make it through life. So for me, I believe every parent should be a little bit more intentional about the schools they go to. Of course, factoring into budgets, but also nurture your children to have meaningful friendships, to pour into their friends, to identify individuals going to walk through life with them and actually intentionally nurture them. Because this is what they're going to hold on to later in life. So you never know. This person is going to become probably an MD of an oil company, or probably a group CEO. What are the odds?
I get you. You were here speaking, and I was thinking, I'm like, now this sort of even entirely influences your friendships to the point that even the person you marry is going to come from one of those circles.
remember what I said, it's a gift that keeps. So these friendships that from an early stage in life, because of the schools you have gone to, will influence the circles you'll be in. They'll influence probably your decisions in what career you're going to take. They'll influence probably where you'll work. They'll influence probably your choice of spouse. You see, so it keeps influencing. I'm telling you from a personal point of view, and from something I've seen from my close friends, the people that went like Namagunga, Gayaza, their spouses are either from Kisubi, Namilyango, Budo, because they have connections to these people. Either they know friends of these friends that went to a social dance, or what people call these days prom, with these people. So have a common factor that ties them together.
I totally get you. I've seen it. I was sharing with the friend sometime, and I was telling them, I'm like, I'm those kids whose parents probably didn't have the knowledge and also the luxury of like, okay, I want my kids to go to these big schools because of reason A, B, C, D, really. Whatever happened, the child is here, and then you now realize, oh, you have to go to school, and you pick the cheapest or the most affordable nearby school. They just wing it. You get, there's like zero intention of like, and the reason as to why this conversation is like very relatable to me is because I've seen it even with just myself. Like I'm totally different. I can't relate with, like, for some reason I've worked my way up to a level of hanging with friends who are from way totally family background, school backgrounds. Like, you can really see the difference between the way you perceive life and the way they look at it. And that's how I know that gap influences your behaviors, your action, your spending culture, your money making culture, the people you date, the people you marry. And that's what I was saying. I'm like, there has to be some sort of intentionality, even now that we are the new adults, because then you're like, oh, I'm just a victim. My parents took me to Kabiramaido. It's not my choice. We're at that point where now you're the adult. You're supposed to be intentional with when you have kids, who you have kids with. Are you guys just repeating the same cycle that your parents raised you up in, or are you growing up to meet people way out of your circle, to meet people who don't have the same traumatic family background, so everything was through struggle? For real, then you break that chain. Then you've seen how. I don't think you've seen, because now I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, I'm like, you're those people where I can't relate. Like, those days you'd eat meat, you'd start with meat on your plate. You guys would eat meat last.
Oh yeah. You've gone as below as that. Oh my God, Joanne.
Exactly. Like that pretty much sums it up. Like, we would start with meat, because what happens if a visitor walks in and there is no meat left in the saucepan? Or you could eat and be what if I get satisfied and there is still meat on my plate? You get.
I know.
Unlike these other kids, they could eat and they're like, nah, I don't like the meat. I'm done. I'm tired.
I know.
But again, I think now here one would say we all want different things out of this life, because people were like, hey, my kids didn't go to the big school. Are they fine? Like, did they turn out just fine? And I'm like, what do like again, which of course I can't judge, because I think at the end of the day, we all really want different things out of this life. Like, while you want the posh life, the big life, a beautiful house, I don't know, an apartment, the big cars, the expensive. I think a lot of people are just fine with, there is food on my table, I have a roof over my head, there's water. Like, some people are just okay with the bare minimum. Really, okay, not bare minimum. Sounds like I'm downplaying whatever their goals are. Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people don't have that big ambition to life, because maybe not everyone is meant to be great. Because while you're out here, because one would say, why are you spending millions of money to take your kid to this school, yet you get, because they're not able to see the vision. Yeah.
You have to think bigger than where you come from. Okay? If you are probably I'll speak for all the people that come from rural areas and come to Kampala. You have to give yourself a fighting chance because your parents gave you a fighting chance. If they didn't, you crawled out of that space and you want to do better.
Which is why I'm telling people to be very. You have to make money in this country before you consider even starting the whole parenting thing. Because I
Thank
keep
you.
making this joke. I'm like, my mom says, tanakola sente Kampala kunogenda kuluti. Because when she usually makes that joke because of how she sees how loose Ugandan money is. Like 1 minute you have 50K, 1 minute it's not there. For you to afford to take your kids to schools that have now like a robotics club or a robotics class or whatever. And for some reason, at some point, these kids are supposed to what? Compete for the same opportunities like you who went to some
How?
ordinary.
How are
Like
you going to
the game is
compete?
already rigged before it even gets to start.
Thank you. You understand, Joanne. You were earlier telling me you went to school in Fort Portal. You
Yeah,
understand? The game was already rigged for the same
rigged.
child, same age as you, who was going to a Kampala school, probably in
Oh,
Gayaza.
yeah, yeah,
Like the opportunities, the exposure they had was completely different.
completely
And when
different.
you're out
Yeah,
of university, you're supposed to compete with the same person for these same opportunities. What are the
opportunities.
odds
Yeah,
that you're going to win?
I hear you. I
Yes.
want us to go towards, let's say, I want us to start with so I think in is it Makerere that has the highest number of graduates every year?
Yes, Mook.
Good. So I'm of the good the opinion that those degrees now are just a I don't know. They no longer feel as grand as they used to back then.
A little bit.
Is there a reason why?
They're not as big as they used to be because people have rigged the system again. The system is getting rigged
Mm,
because you'll get out of university with probably a second class lower,
mm-hmm,
and lucky for you, you got the second class lower, but you were in a school like Namgongo, okay?
mm,
You
mm,
probably sat in the same class with Chirumira's son, and
mm,
were next to probably Charles Peter Maiga's son.
mm-hmm.
You're probably in the same class with a girlfriend to Sudil's something. You understand? Because of those
Yeah.
circles, these people you are close to or that you associate with can't let you be down there at the bottom of the barrel. They will hold your hand and you take it out. Now, how I take you back to the system getting rigged. There will be a
Mm,
child like Joanne who was in Hoima or 40 that
mm.
worked extremely hard,
Oh
okay?
dear.
And they got 20 out of 20. I don't know, that has changed recently. I don't know what the current grading system is,
It's
but they
messed up.
got a 20 out of 20
Mm,
and they went to university and got a first class. But because their circle was mostly 40 people, and probably when they went to class, they kept around that same circle, they do
mm,
not have a fighting chance, even with their first class degree.
yeah.
Okay? You've heard of this gospel song by Levikson, Mbera.
Oh
He
yeah,
was talking
yeah.
about Kamia. Kamia was very brilliant in class.
Mm,
But because the people that weren't as brilliant as him in class were well connected, they are okay. That speaks a
right,
lot about social capital. Kamia
right.
got A's, but Kamia is a toilet attendant. Not that I'm looking down at what his hustle is, but that's
Yeah.
to show you what social capital is because their parents were well placed and they were intentional about certain things. These
Mm,
kids weren't brilliant, but they were passing through the system. Okay?
mm.
They are okay. And everyone that associated closely to them is probably fine. But Kamia stayed up late on a candle reading to get 20 in 20 somewhere in a village
Oh God.
because of not really trying to put in the work to build social capital while in school. Kamia is a
That's
toilet attendant.
when you say it like that, which makes me think the hard work does not pay off. It doesn't. I've never been so discouraged to be a hard worker than I am lately. Like just because you're smart and brilliant and a hard worker does not mean you'll make it.
Yes.
Oh, that's very
Does
heartbreaking.
that
I don't know.
explain a lot of things now when you get it from another person's point of view?
Yeah. I should listen to that song more often just to, I
Give you
totally get it.
perspective.
I was thinking about these schools when you were talking earlier, and I'm like, okay, all these schools, okay, the money, da, da, da. It, and that's now when you say Kamia was, when you use that as an example, like he was brilliant and all. I think also these schools don't even produce the most brilliant kids, really.
They don't necessarily bring out the most brilliant of students, but I'll tell you again, like what people before me told me, we are taking you there
Mm,
not just to go to school, make friends. And I keep telling my
mm,
kids, please make friends. School is good, school is important. Please make friends, because after school,
mm,
then what? Hmm?
mm. Oh my
Then
god!
what? Make the
Don't you think
friends.
we need a new playbook? I don't know.
Joanne,
I
the
feel like
system
they
is
were telling
rigged.
us the wrong things. We are telling these kids, pass, put in the work, wake up at night and read hard, get
No,
your grades together. When it actually comes down to it,
it actually comes down to that. And if you've noticed, even in the employment world,
yeah.
if you're applying for a job, Joanne, and
Mm,
probably I'm the recruiter, okay?
mm,
And I see your name, and on your CV, I am seeing the same school.
mm.
There's your CV instantly becomes different, even if it's
Oh,
trash. So the rules need. I don't think the rules are about to be changed, and this is from a point of my friends who are working abroad
mm,
and have been to the prestigious universities, the Ivy League
mm,
universities. They'll tell
mm,
you, alumni is everything. The look on your
mm,
face when you're going through the World Bank corridors and you recognize a face from the same university
mm.
is amazing. That says a lot, because they expect, well, you're supposed to be in this space because, well, we were in Oxford together. You
Oh, wow.
understand? Now, me, with my Makerere degree, how am I
Mm.
given a fighting chance? This system is
It's rigged. That's what I'm
on
saying.
and
We need
on.
to. We need to. I don't know. There has to be a way to, because it's the reality. Like I've seen this with. I had like a whole different expectation of what life would turn out for me, because I'd come from like this not so great background, the schools and all,
I know.
and I'd convinced myself that yeah, because I'm open minded, I'm outgoing, I'm outspoken, like I'm going to show up in a room, and like you get like, and but then now passing your hand, so who are you? What's your name? Where do you go to school? Like people can't relate with you. Like you're literally inexistent. You're like very foreign to them, and that's what I was saying. I'm like, this conversation is very close, like very personal to me, because I've seen this work
You
out all
can
the time.
relate.
Yeah, I've seen people who, and a lot of time it even makes you sort of get some sort of anger. You're like, hey, I'm smarter than this person. How are they in this position? Yet I would
I
even have got a
know.
job. Like you instead start to sulk. Yet in Max says it's not even that. It's not their fault. It's That's what I'm saying. The system is rigged. We need to we just need to like tell people the truth. By the way, like,
People need to
because
know the truth, honestly.
yeah,
Because
like it's not, books are not enough. Your brilliance is not enough. And for me, I honestly started seeing this after COVID. I sort of ended up doing remote work, and sadly that was around my first initial years of my career. And
yeah,
now how I started noticing was I didn't know as much people. The only people I knew were kids from my school who had the same struggles as I do. We're both broke. We don't know anyone in, let's say, for example, government or any of these big organizations. You're trying to create something, your friends don't get it because they can't relate. You're the same, like you're both blind and trying to jump out of this
they
hole.
think you're delusional.
Yeah, and none of you is able to help the other. And that's when now I think I learned about um people poverty. And
Oh, yes.
yeah, that's when I'm like, hey, like I honestly don't know people that are doing better than me, or and since then I think for Rihanna I've been trying to like beat that, and that's when I learned about now the whole school thing. Like, hey, that's what I was telling my sister. I'm like, hey, look for that money, rob the bank if you have to. You have to make sure Nicole goes to like a school that's way out of our own, like the schools we grew up admiring. You're going to look for that money one way or
Yeah,
the other. She'll either marry one of the rich men from there, which sounds so wrong to say, or have friends with with one of
reality.
the next governors at Bank of Uganda. Or I mean, you can never know, because hey, your brilliance, your hard work, your talent, your gratefulness at life, it's not enough if you're not in the right places. As we wrap up, I just want to pick your mind on, I am going to give you worst case scenario here of a random kid like Kainaviona who went to the most random school in Footpoto. Somehow, Bambi, the parents work their way. She ends up in some school in Kampala. But of course, because you're like so hungry at life, you're like, I have to join the big leagues. I have to meet the big dogs that went to Chitende and Budo. Somehow you work your way up here and you realize, yeah, you may actually have a chance, but they don't know you. They don't care. Yeah, you're all that, but like, nah, we don't know you. How am I supposed to break that? Like, how do I get to fit in? How do I get to build as much social capital?
Now, I tell this to my team members, and I tell this to my younger friends, because
Mm.
I am weird like that. I have friends that are younger than me. I tell them, go out more often, socialize, network,
Mm. Yeah.
put yourself up there, be in spaces where these people that you want to rub shoulders with are. Because
Mm.
yes, not all of our parents are going to be able to give us a fighting chance. Probably
True.
because of the bank account. Probably they don't know any better, and that's okay. Now,
Mm.
if the situation is like that, how do you personally give yourself a fighting chance? Go out and network. Where do
Mm.
these people hang out? Where do these people meet to talk about these things that are important to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
If
that
this
sounds
probably
hard.
if you're in the sector of it sounds hard, but if you're intentional, you figure it out.
I mean, I am very shy, by the way. Like in real life, like I'm not antisocial, but like before I fit into a place, I would rather stay in my bed any day. But there's the way these spaces turn out so intimidating, and oh, you have to like have really skin for you to get to a point of like, yeah. Because by the way, the whole you coming from like a different sort of gives you some sort of like, I don't want to say shyness, of like you have some sort of like inferiority complex. You know you don't fit in. You know, ah,
I know, but now you have to put yourself there for your own good.
yeah,
And after that, after putting yourself there and making these friendships and making these connections, do better by your children. You can't repeat the
yeah,
same cycle. You can't say, I was never ready to, to put my kids in a certain school. No, there's no excuse. You now know better.
yeah,
Your parents didn't know any better, but you do.
right.
You get what I'm trying to say? We can't
I
keep
hear you.
repeating the same cycle. We can't keep giving the
Yeah,
same excuses.
yeah. Oh, I am very. Oh, I'm literally like that kid whose parents just bullied him to get it together, madam. So this,
But you understand where I'm coming from. And I
I
won't
do, I
stop
do.
saying
I
this.
hear you.
But for a girl like you, Joanne, we
Yeah,
can't keep saying you are disadvantaged because of your parents. No, we can no
yeah,
longer
you
use that
can't.
card.
Yeah,
In
so long
fact,
as
you don't
that.
have to hear that card anymore. You now know better.
Yeah,
You've rubbed shoulders with different people. You now know better. Now keep in that space. Keep elevating yourself. Network with people that are in spaces that you want to be.
yeah.
Because if we can't go to these schools, where do these children go? They go for football tournaments. Appear. These
Yeah,
children go for probably music competitions. You appear. Okay, if you're out of
yeah,
university and you're in the workforce, okay, which
mm,
organizations? Probably they do probably accountants, whatever, or HR or lawyers or
mm,
doctors or whatever professional it is. They
mm,
subscribe to this. associations. Go there, register, be a member, rub shoulders with them on a professional level. Let them look at you as their peer in the same profession. You understand? We can't keep using the same excuse. My parents didn't give me a fighting chance. No. After a certain age, we can't take that.
This is gold. This is really good. I am really glad we did this. This is the part you say, you tell us something about you that would probably not believe, or most people don't believe about you. So take, for example, like me, I think a lot of people don't believe that I can cook. You actually don't believe I can cook, can you?
No, you can't.
I can't.
No, Joanne, you can't cook.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, so
just as brief introduction, my name is Petra. What many people can't believe is I went to law school and went all the 9 years. However, I am practicing marketing.
Really? Now I
Yes.
have questions.
I am on my journey to become a chartered marketer.
Why did you change course?
Marketing is a passion for me. It comes naturally. I can sell to you just about anything. Trust me.
Just the same way you just sold to me social capital. Now I don't know if it was true you just sold social capital to me.
No.
I know, it's fine. I was just messing with you.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, but this was really great. I am glad we did this. Thank you for joining me, and
thank you, Joanne. It was a pleasure. Always is. Don't be a stranger.
Always will be. No, I'm not a stranger.
Don't be a stranger, please. I'm always available on WhatsApp.
Surely.
For you Gen Zs. Yes.
So I don't know if you've noticed a repeated pattern around the guests I've been having on this podcast. They are not usual celebrities that you've seen in the paper or on TV or heard from anywhere else. There are people around my social circle that I think are very opinionated, very brilliant, and have really interesting takes about life to share. So I've been thinking about ways on how to wrap up these episodes, and I thought, what better way to wrap them up than to tell you about how I met the person you just spoke to, because most of them so far have been people I interact with, but I think really have different takes at life, and I'd love to talk to them. So starting with today's guest, this is a lady I met about 3-4 years ago. As I continue to transition into my career, there was a time when COVID hit, I ended up being a teacher. I know. Story for another day. But yeah, I applied for a job at this international school, and they needed teaching assistants to run some online classes for the kids. And being who I am, I get the job. And this lady was a parent to one of the kids that I used to teach. So you know how kids are. I pick up a really good friendship with the little man, and eventually, because I was friends with the kid, I end up friends with the mom as well, and that's how we built our relationship. A year later, after COVID blew by, I had to carry on with my career in comms, and we still kept the relationship even when I was not in touch with the son. And I'm sure that the son is like a big boy. I haven't seen him in a while, but for some reason me and the mom have forged our relationship around, and that is how we ended up here. And that right there is how our guest today and I ended up building and nurturing our relationship. And yeah, I don't think there is anything much more left to tell. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to listen into these episodes. I don't take it for granted. It's your attention, your time, your dedicated attention over here that make these episodes worthwhile. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.